So today's guest is AJ Balasubramanian sir, a seasoned serial entrepreneur, incubator leader with over 40 years of experience. So he is a 1984 mechanical engineer graduate from CEG. So he started his journey in DRDO and went on to lead ventures like .com, hardware electronics, software, US healthcare, and now he leads Aigilx Healthcare. So AJ sir is champion in financial literacy, self-leadership, and art of practicing over theory and venturing all the early stage ventures, which is their crucial piece. So let's dive into the journey of Sir's journey, who is a leader and also helps others discover their own. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. This is my first podcast. As I told you, I've been asked, many people have asked me. I'm kind of shy actually. I don't know how it is going to come. So this is my first podcast. Thank you for this opportunity. Sure. I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you for accepting our invitations for the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Yeah.
So let's dive into the questions. Sir.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us about your first venture, sir, that you also had lab-on-chip services which you provide in the 1980s. So how was the ecosystem at that time, sir?
So when I graduated in 1984, my mom wanted me to work for a government organization, because there's some Tamil or saying irukku, kaal kaasu vaanganalum government kaasu vaanganum, government sambalam vaanganum, meaning working in government was so prestigious those days. So luckily for me, I also got campus recruited from DRDO. I was posted in CVRD Avadi. So I was there for almost an year. And I was really working well. I mean, I liked the job because we were building some tank and all that, battle tank. So, but I was unsettled because even when I was in college, I was like part of this entrepreneurship forum and all that. So we wanted to start a company. And one of those days, I was in Mount Road, I accidentally met my batchmate, Jiva. I was on the platform. So we met and I was asking Jiva, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to start a company. That was February 1984, February 26 or 1985, February 26. Okay. So 2 days, the last date for that month. But I went and submitted the resignation the next day. So my boss was telling, why are you going? This is a very good job. Obviously, it was a good job, Group A services. We paid handsomely, for a young officer. And that was very prestigious also. But I didn't know that the risk of starting a company, but we were very passionate. I've saved about 10,000 rupees from those salaries that I got during that 1 year. So we kept that as our seed money. And there's no startup concept. We were all called as small industries, small scale industries, SSI. So we obviously came up with an idea of fixing what is called as, in those days, the trucks used to get into a lot of accident in the nights. Even now it's happening because if you have the headlight, beaming on the oncoming drivers, and both of them they cannot see. So usually if you see, the drivers will switch on and off. So we wanted to devise a system to put it in a truck, all trucks, so that this automatically will trip on and off. And we thought it was very easy to build. It was not. So we struggled for nearly 1 year with that problem, and we developed lots of stuff, like used relay initially and then moved to semiconductor, but all the money that we had, we exhausted. So 1 year is gone, and here we were all the money is gone. Some were literally without anything. But suddenly one of those days, somebody called us and they wanted us to develop something. So that was for the airport. Then the airport was being built, not this one, and in between there was another airport, the old airport. In between there was one new airport was coming. So they wanted a display system for the luggage conveyor, baggage conveyor. So those days they used to write in chalk and keep that flight number. It looked ugly because they were just upgrading the airport. So me and my partner, we went there and they said, can you make this display system? We have never done that. Okay. No, but Jiva, my partner, was pretty good in electronics. So we randomly quoted some price, kind of little bit high price, but immediately they agreed. We want some 10 units like this. Can you supply? It was we were in so deep trouble that time that this came as a big surprise. and we built it and then started supplying 10 units, and then we made reasonable money. That was our first. So here what I'm trying to tell you is, if you try to make something which the customer does not want, selling is very hard. So that was a big insight for us. And when the need is felt by the customer, selling is easy. So identifying the product, then we start venturing into building, because we named the company as Applied Data Systems. I mean, imagine, data is there. Now, 1985, we have already named the company as Data Systems, because our core idea was to acquire data from industrial systems and all that. Luckily, after that, we made multiple systems, one for ONGC, which was for oil exploration. They used to acquire data from the ground, and then they process it in usually in Dehradun, and the tapes that they recording this signals used to be sent to Dehradun for processing. So that time PCAT technology was coming, VGA graphic adapters, and then high resolution monitors were being introduced. So we actually designed one system which could tell them, instead of sending the spool tape to Dehradun, they can locally process and see whether this particular space is basically it used to be like they plant some 10-15 small low intensity blast. They call it as blast, because they will in a grid they will post all these small blasting things, and they will put a microphone also. So the reverberations, after the blast goes down and it reverberates. It sends a signal back into the microphone. This microphone will actually be fed into analog digital converter, and the whole thing will appear on a screen like there is a pattern. If that pattern is studied, they will know whether there is potentially oil or not. This was when near Kumbakonam and all that, the oil basins ONGC was exploring. And luckily people in ONGC also really helped us, because they felt the overseas companies are charging them lots of money. Here we made a very cheap solution, and we could sell to ONGC several of them, and we had this problem that time, that we could not have sophisticated labs and all that, because you're bootstrapped completely. So you have just a basic oscilloscope and some multimeter, and then try to do all these lots of complicated thing also with this very little infrastructure. And around the same time, one of our friends went to Hong Kong. He had seen what is called as a whistling keychain. If you whistle, the keychain will actually emit music. You've seen that. So there is a small device. So that is based on what is called as a chip-on board. In the microchips, inside the microchip you will see what is called as a die. That is the actual chip. So the commercial applications of in the video game, handheld video games, the LCD video games, and then watches, everywhere in Hong Kong, Taiwan and all that, they used a very low cost, like a cottage industry, they used to bond these chips directly onto PCBs. Those PCBs, and then they put on top of it epoxy. It is called the tail end of manufacturing of IC systems. Okay. Now we went and purchased that machine from Hong Kong. We brought it to India. Then one person from Hong Kong came and he installed that system, and we learned how to operate that machine. But those days, getting the chip into India was a big problem, because export is so restricted. Now we struggled, we finally got some few chips, and then we had lots of problems. This machine, we could not use it after buying it. And we kept it idle for almost a year. And suddenly the policy changed, government permitted importation of chips and all that, and we got some orders from toy companies. So there's two things, one is the chip-on board, which is a very pioneering thing in India. We were one of the earliest companies to do it. And the other digital systems are also we were manufacturing. And that time we had this ambition to build a fully digital lab, which is like install some logic analyzer, digital storage oscilloscope, high precision multimeter and all that. We came across a product called trivector energy meter, meaning the three-phase energy meter used to be still working on the old principle of the rotary wheel. What is called as the rotary wheel is based on the current, the intensity, the wheel will rotate, and then the energy was measured through the number of rotations this wheel make. It was not very precise. Okay, now the technology was moving very fast and microcontrollers were becoming popular, so we ventured into developing a full-fledged trivector energy meter, and we did the complete product, including a plastic enclosure using polycarbonate and stuff like that. And for this, in 1991, we got venture capital. I didn't know what is venture capital, but somebody told me there is something called venture capital. If you apply, they will give it. So that this gentleman told me that to apply, you must write a business plan. Now I asked him, how do you write a business plan? He said, go and buy this book called Joseph Manusko's, how to write a business plan. I went to Higginbotham's and bought that book. Luckily, one copy was there. And then read that book for about, I think, 3 weeks, and then I wrote the full business plan. And luckily, we submitted that business plan and took the prototype and showed it to IDBI. Within about 1 hour after scrutiny, they gave us this 50 lakhs of investment that time. So I came back and we struggled for 2-3 years, but the government regulation changed. And also, we made a major mistake of not understanding how we can sell these trivector meters to electricity boards, because electricity boards work in a different mode, like they buy thousands of these meters and then they go on tender. So if you want to sell it to electricity board, you should be already a big company having done some turnover and all that. We had lots of problem in that, and then that venture we lost money and then we had to wind up. So that's it's a big experience for me to how to run a company, and money is not very important, because the first venture, which I said no, we frugally started, it was still flourishing and we were managing to do some work on that. We were making money. The second venture, in which we started with money, but we could not succeed. Now, why am I telling this is because I think most of the time when we start ventures, we think money is very important. So this is how our journey, the early days, like very interesting. And, eventually I quit the firm, and then my partners continue to work on that. So that was my first experience in startup.
It is such an inspiring and motivational story, sir, because we think once we start, the success comes immediately, but it's a long process. We can't predict how it ends.
Exactly.
So talking about data and precision, sir, so how do you think current technology evolution, because AI is taking over it's taking over all the industries, including healthcare. So how do you think it will have the impact in the society?
I think, one of the things, so far automation has always been there. Every, in the past also, we have seen that factories being taken over by CNC machines and robots and all that. Now, in all these cases, the machines did not take over the very important process that human beings do, that is thinking. And with the language models, it looks like almost it starts thinking. In the deep research nowadays, if you use these, language models, it even says that how is it going to approach a problem to solve. So I think it's going to have serious impact, but I'm also seeing there are multiple views. Number one, some people including Geoffrey Hinton, who was the founder of this language model, principles, he's very pessimistic, or I would not say pessimistic. He feels that there's impending danger in artificial intelligence taking over lots of things, and then we cannot control it. And some people have the abundance theory, which is like everything will be manufactured by artificial intelligence, therefore we don't have to work. And our current economic models in the world, if you see, we have factories, people work, or organizations, people work, they get their wages, government takes some tax, and then we have the surplus income, we go and buy things, so that people who provide services and product, they manufacture that. So the whole cycle is based on that. What if everything is made by machine? Where will we get the tax even for the government? Where will be the surplus income? Who will buy the product? So this is one economic challenge. The other thing what I'm seeing is, I'm seeing the growth of the artificial intelligence as it is pretty rapid, and even about a year before I was not convinced on many things, but today when I start using it more and more, it looks like it might take over eventually many of the areas. Now I'm optimistic in that sense that lots of things which we could not do in the past, we may be able to do, because things would become cheaper, easier and better. But I'm also not very sure whether how would it impact, particularly for countries like India. I mean, how are we going to adapt it? I mean, can we unleash artificial intelligence in all the domains in India? Therefore, no, India is a country where we are looking for more and more jobs. And what if even before India could reach its fullest potential? I mean, all these years as we were growing up, from my own childhood, I'm seeing India has tremendously grown. Take for example, I've never imagined in my life when I was a child or school going, I would even buy a car, because car used to be such a very big luxury thing. In the whole of, the 5 or 6 streets where we were, there's one family which used to have car. So now everybody has car. I've bought several cars and then changed them and all that. I could not believe myself, but this growth has happened. And of course, we still have lots of poverty things to be addressed. But can artificial intelligence go so uncontrolled into Indian system? I'm not sure. The governments at this moment, if as far as I know, they are not taking this seriously. But when we were in college, there used to be a term called appropriate technology, which is like a technology which should be appropriate, like for the context. So sometimes, technology for the sake of technology, it's being very advanced. So we actually fancy that, oh, it's a very great technology, so therefore we should use it. And we don't solve some basic problem which could be solved. I mean, that doesn't require the level of technology that we are all fancying, or, sending a rocket to the moon. I mean, these are important, no doubt, but I think India still has to work on many of these basics and fix it. So I think the opportunities for us in India is, while a set of people can concentrate on these high-end technologies, but the impact that we want to create in our society must more focus on the existing technology, which is being even disseminated to various levels and problems solved. I mean, that's my take on this. But I'm hopeful that I think eventually human beings will figure it out. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Figuring it out also, they'll do it with the help of AI.
Yeah. So years ago, like there was a book called Shallows. It was written by an author called Nicholas Carr. Okay, he's a Guardian, reporter, and I think he's a fantastic, author. He wrote the difference between human beings and primates, like apes and chimpanzees, is that like we are the only species who can read symbols, understand language, and communicate and think with our free parental cortex. Like we'll be able to plan. Now, this reading, comprehending, thinking, speaking, all that are unique to human being. So, the less we read, okay, the less we think, the more dumber, we can become. And I think he wrote this book when internet was, spreading like wildfire, and everybody was, using internet, because people stopped reading full books. For example, today I think even I prefer listening to podcasts than reading books. But when I read book, I think I have a conversation in my mind between what I'm trying to learn and, So reading, writing is important. But now we are delegating this, even that minimal thing that we used to do, to AI. What would happen? But it is useful, because sometimes even now for editing my own articles, I use ChatGPT or Gemini, and they are good actually. But can we stop learning the core of what we have to learn, which is like fundamentally the ability to read, write, comprehend, think, speak, listen. I think one of the things that we should do with young people, especially in schools up to probably 10th, 12th, we should emphasize on this reading, writing, basic math, comprehension, speaking, listening, so thinking, because I think rest of it we can outsource to machine, provided we are able to do this. Because if you can't do this, then you cannot do anything. Even you cannot use the machine properly. Even today, prompt engineering is very important, because unless you ask the right questions, the systems are not going to give you the useful output that you want. So that's what my take on this AI stuff. Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, sir. So from being an entrepreneur to a mentor, sir, how did your journey begin, sir?
Okay, so I was on and off. In fact, I worked in companies also in between, because I had a setback, and then my wife told me no more entrepreneurship. Like, I think we have enough of it. Like, then I started working for my friend's company. I mean, again, it was more entrepreneurial. So I helped them set up, grow the company from about 3 people when we started, and then eventually we went up to 250. And here I was moving from hardware to software for the first time, because in 1998, I think I learned internet myself, self-learned, and I found it very fascinating. And I have the same feeling now when I see AI, because when I saw internet, I visualized this tremendous potential. AI is just a distraction on this question, but what I'm saying is, like, when I worked also, then I learned about software, and my core interest has become, how is this small companies evolve and then become really good organizations. Now I was both a practitioner and I read a lot. One of the things I developed is, if I don't know anything about some subject, I will go out and buy lots of books or continue to read. And at one point of time, USIS had I mean, these days getting into USIS is very tough. In the 90s, it is very easy. You can go and park your bike and then get into USIS, go and then use their library very easily. We had a bank in Mount Road, which used to, when I go to bank, bank used to tell me, come after 2 hours. So interim 2 hours, I used to go and sit in the AC and read all the books in USIS and borrow the books and all that. So by that, I could accumulate tremendous knowledge about, both by reading and applying to my own context of how my company grew and why I had problem. All the aspects of building a small business or a startup, as we call it now. So this made me, like, volunteering to help others who come to me, like, they ask for any help. I did not set out to become a mentor. So I had an opportunity to work with the startup ecosystem people. Many of my friends who are in the startup ecosystem, and they come and ask me for help. So whenever I see young people, I always try to see that, they should not go through the same problem that we had gone through. So therefore, can we help them? That is the way, I always position myself. And somehow I like this area, but it's fascinating. For me, the growth of a small company, the creation of an organization, from the individual entrepreneur to the small team, to funding of it, to product development. And this is a domain which I love. If you ask me, because of my sheer experience, so I've seen all the context. Generally, if you come and present to me about any startup, I'll be able to immediately relate to the problems that the founders face. So luckily, also, I had one opportunity to be the general manager of incubator, VIT TBI. So I spent a year setting up the TBI, and then I also went deep into understanding how the incubators work and all that. So it was not a very planned journey, but I became a mentor, because lots of people started asking for help. So I tend to volunteer, any context where there is this startup ecosystem is there. I don't publicize, and as I told you, but I'm open to giving lots of help to others. But I like it, and I've also occasionally made some few investments with founders who I like. Basically, I'm not an angel investors, not a very high net worth individual or that kind of a person. But when I invest in companies, I work with them very deeply. Meaning, like, I make a very small investment, usually the first investment. Basically, if I see 2 or 3 youngsters coming together, they're very passionate, and I found them, okay, this guy seems to be very interesting, so let us bet on them. So I make the first investment, like their parents, kind of without any business plan, nothing. Okay, I will support you, do something. So I help them through the journey. So that's how. But over the years, I've seen a few companies that I've supported. They all are growing. They've got multiple rounds of funding. They've gone into pivoting and all that. So that experience of observing them also added to my mentoring journey. So I don't give gyan. The mentorship is not about, do this kind of thing. You have to get into the daily routines of the companies and then listen to the founders, what problems they are going. It's like all the nitty gritty. it's not very easy actually. It takes away lots of time basically. So I prefer doing it with few companies than saying that I'm a mentor, so therefore every day go and then give a talk, because that's not effective. Because I think today one of the best things about today's ecosystem, thanks to internet, and then the intention of people to share the knowledge about how the startups work. We have huge body of knowledge, and imagine like if you today are ready to learn about what you want to do with startup, there's enough material out there, and it's up to you to go and then consume them and then apply them. So there's nothing secret, like there's nobody. So the most important thing is contextually what is relevant to you, you must be able to consume. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I go out, and then when I work with startups, so I'll be very deeply involved. I mean, usually for the first few years, 2-3 years. After that, I don't think they require me, because as I told you, my specialty is creating that nursery to early stage. Because after that, people come in and then we also guide them. So my excitement comes from supporting these, the very, very early stage, entrepreneurship. But many people have failed also that I've worked with. But it gives me an overall understanding of, how to deal with this and empathize with founders. Basically, most of the founders are very lonely. Nobody supports them. Like you are having problem from your own, say, parents, or you are married, your spouse. And there are pressures always. It's a very lonely journey. And until you reach a traction point, there's no support really. So this is what I give to most entrepreneurs, and that's why when they come to me, and then when they go back, they go with more confidence. Even though I don't really solve the problems, because I help them think through. So that experience of mine, I mean, having gone through successes and failure, and eventually I feel you can overcome that. That's the confidence that I give. I think it works. And many founders have told me that that's a unique thing that I found, because with most others they become judgmental immediately. Like you are going to go to a mentor, probably you're going to tell all the problems that you have and all things what went wrong. The mentor will smartly say that no, you should not have done this, you don't know how to do this. I think that's not what people want, because they are already in that problem. So you have to now tell them, don't worry about it. I think this is the same everybody goes through. I mean, all of us, when we go through the startup journey, we are going to inevitably make those few mistakes, or even many mistakes. The challenge is, despite all the mistakes, you should be able to overcome and then do what is to be done. That's the most important thing. So that's what I impart.
I think that's how we met you, sir. That's how we got meaningful insights, and we thought that led us to change lot of changes from the mistakes that we made, sir. I think we should thank you for guiding us to the right path, sir.
Yeah. So you don't give up on your dream. So what I always tell is, you can have a very audacious dream, very complicated things to be achieved, but go step by step. One of the models, like I like about startup creation is the model advocated by Saraswati, Professor Saraswati, which has written a book called Effectuation. And that's fantastic idea to apply, because I had seen in my own life that when I succeeded, I could not plan forward and do things the way I thought everything should go. I mean, life never works like that. But on the other hand, you are always limited by resources. So let's say you are what you know, what you can do, who you know, what you can, who you can reach out to. The thing is very much attached to you. I mean, what is possible from your current situation. It depends on, for example, where I come from, what my parents are, what my uncles are, what my friends are, which college I went to, how much money I can put in. So this is a limitation that we are going to have. That is what we will have. But even with whatever we have, we can do lots of things. We don't do that. So there is, what is amplified is, we always see in the news is that, some company has got huge funding. We associate that success as getting this funding. Actually, I mean, with whatever you have, you can do a lot of things. Are you doing it? Now, Effectuation talks about focus on what you have, start the journey, do something, Okay, take an affordable loss risk, meaning meet somebody or create a small prototype, show it to a potential customer. And then if the potential customer says that, okay, this is good, can you pivot it and bring it? Then there is a breakthrough. And you meet a mentor says that, don't worry, you must meet this person or go to this incubator. So things keep opening up, not without money most of the time. By the time you gain traction, then that becomes very powerful. Then the whole thing gets reinforced. But if you don't make any attempt, no, you will think that money will solve the problem. But money doesn't solve problem. People solve problems. So like 5 of you come together, and all the 5 of you, if you can work for 6 months without salary, somehow you go and beg your parents, don't force me to go for any job, I will do this. Within that 6 months, if you guys can create something tangible, then whatever, some potential investor or some mentor or early angel investor, you will put some money. So you must hope for that. You should not think that, okay, all these constraints are big, so therefore I will not do anything. That's not the way entrepreneurship works. And you will learn eventually. I think most of the things are possible provided you have decided. So one of the things is, you don't take huge risks. Basically, where failure hurts you is if you spend lot of money and then take a huge risk without being prepared, so you may collapse. When that time it hurts you a lot. So don't do that. So do incremental experiments, slowly start building it. So therefore you have to choose those kind of ventures and projects which align with your own natural strengths. Don't get into, because somebody did this, so I also want to do it. That kind of a thing may not work. Because even for that matter, the biggest of the companies have launched certain projects and they've also failed, not because they don't have resources. In the social media space, if you really look at Google, they could not break much. So why is that Google cannot do? Do we have to say about the resources and the talent they have? Because this can go wrong, because individuals have one of the knacks that most good entrepreneurs have is, they clearly know what they can manage to do, and then they focus on doing that and keep on doing it. It's like one saying, entrepreneurs are like, if you have burger, you can bite a bit and then chew and then easily eat. But you can also bite a large piece of it. Okay. So you have to bite reasonably large piece where you don't choke and get killed. But if you bite little bit, you won't become anything. But what is the size you have to bite must be known to the entrepreneur. So the game is that, Yeah.
Sure, sir. I think that is what is pushing us forward now as a startup. Okay, sir. So as you told, so there are various resources for the entrepreneurs and founders. How do you think they have to manage? Maybe it's related to the financial things or resources for learning. How do you think they have to segregate? Because they have too many resources these days that they are quite confused of what they have to focus on.
So, I'm assuming that, being an entrepreneur means you have to focus on technology, product, finance, human resources. Is this what you are telling?
Yes.
So, basically, don't try to imagine a new organization like a smaller version of a bigger organization. So, early days, don't worry about too much about systems, processes and structures and all that. But have an eye for that. But imagine, in the early days, your focus must be making sure that the problem that you are trying to solve is really a worthy problem that people are willing to listen to and use your product or services for solving their real problem. Now that is the first beginning. Like what technology you use to solve that problem could be any technology, but as long as it's viable, which you can build yourself, or it is, you can ensure the supply chain if it is a production, product. So as long as there is a good problem that you're trying to solve, focus on that in the early days. Okay. Second thing is, like, once you do it, ensure that the product developed as a proper fit in the market. Not all customers will buy your product. One of the assumptions that people have is, when they build a company, they think that any product, like for example, for breakfast, all of us can eat idli. So let's take Tamil Nadu or Chennai as a city. There may be a 1 crore population. So therefore everybody eats 2-3 idli in the morning. So your immediate thought process is, okay, 1 crore. So I can make everyday morning 3 crore idli because everybody eats 3 idlis. So each idli is 10 rupees. So I can sell it to everybody. And that's not the way markets work. So most of us think that that's the way market work. People eat idli at home. People don't eat idli, don't eat breakfast. They go to hotels. They, whatever, all this combination. So therefore, your approach should be that even if you get into idli market, what kind of people will buy our idli and why? So there is, again the theory of jobs to be done by Clayton Christian. So he says very clearly, like, people don't buy a product because they want to buy a product. It is like the best example he gave is like people don't buy drilling machine because they want to own a drilling machine. We basically want a hole in the wall, or if your auntie wants to hang a calendar, which is again you can hang a calendar using a nail, or you can also buy some plastic sticky thing and then use it. So the problem that they want to address is hanging a calendar in the wall. So you don't have to sell them drilling machines. So same way you should think, whatever problem I'm trying to solve is useful for the customers. And therefore the next thing comes, how do we fund it? How do we scale it? How can I sell it to more people? How can I take it to larger number of users? So this is the next challenge. Here is what you start building, the final step. After you finish all this, the final stage only, you'll have to worry more about the systems and processes and having people. Before that, you be frugal as much as possible. Because we have a huge anxiety when you start a company, because we look at large companies and then see those large companies as something that, they have all the systems in place. Like, there is a VP for marketing, there is an R&D, there is a big office, there is a reception. No, in a small company, you should not worry about all that, because you have to focus on what is most important. The core is getting the product out, making sure that the product is useful to the customer, and then knowing what type of customers are going to use our product and why they will repeatedly use it and why it is valuable to them, and how do we take it to them and sell it easily so that they can buy it and use it. So if you solve this problem, the rest of the things follows. I think eventually you know that how do you scale it. Do you want to have one unit, multiple unit, you want to sell 1,000 pieces, 2,000 pieces? The organization building part of it must happen later. But when you do the first thing, you will know the first part of this journey of startup, you will know whether there is a huge market. So if you fail here, no matter how much effort you put on the systems building and processes and knowledge of other things, will not really be helpful in scaling. Because ultimately, it is like creating the DNA. When the companies are small, they have to really work around and do all these mistakes and multiple iterations, go through this messy process. And don't worry if you are making those mistakes during the early day, as long as these are like, small mistakes, affordable loss theory. You can spend, some money, okay, 5,000 rupees I lost. Don't lose 50 lakhs, that's the problem, then you'll shut down, then you will become a big failure. Okay, you can also lose 50 lakhs provided you are a millionaire. So therefore you can't say that, because they do it, I can do it. You must have a knack of knowing when to take larger risk, when to take small risk, and that has to be both intuitive and then some kind of judgment and your own circumstances. Yeah.
So what is one of the biggest misconception that the early founders have regarding the success of their startups when they start initially?
So I think I will not call it as misconception, because the optimism is what is driving most of the entrepreneurs. You're naturally, if you want to become a startup entrepreneur, if you want to start a business, you have to be really confident. Basically, you must have certain level of confidence in yourself and your ability to get things done. So initially what would happen is when you start a venture, you have this feeling of euphoria, because you don't get sleep. You become very excited. I'm going to do something on my own because I'm responsible to get something done. Now, I think the early days, the traction is not going to be as expected unless you are very lucky. So you would do lots of work during the early days of your startup. You will see that nothing is moving, in any big momentum. And because you are the only person excited and the rest of the people are not as excited about what you are trying to do. So therefore this, the slowness will actually lead to some kind of a decline, in your, oh, I'm trying to do all this, nothing is moving. Now you will hit some reality quotient, and then maybe you are thinking about a new product or service, and then initially you thought that it's a very exciting idea, I'm going to do this because it looks very fancy and very useful to lots of people. And by the time you talk to many people or even trying to build this product, you will realize that it's not as easy as what I thought it is, like sometimes. Then you will become realistic, then you will have to readjust, recalibrate your aspirations. And then, so that time most of the entrepreneurs feel that they made a mistake. The early failures, in fact, in my opinion, if you have not encountered failures in the startup, especially during the early period, or gone through some kind of a really painful period, even though you may be even somewhat tractioning, you are successful, and you're not going to be successful in the long run unless you put in lots of money to salvage that. Even putting lots of money can also, it may not be able to salvage the situation. As I said, when you have lots of money, you get into another problem of complacency, because you have money, you won't do things that you have to do. Ultimately, the business has to succeed by itself, by making money for that business and create some surplus. So therefore, focusing on revenue, focusing on solving real problem, focusing on value creation is the most essential thing that you have to do, because initially you will not know this, because you thought in your imagination everything is going to be single pass. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, so therefore everything is going to go smooth, so therefore I will be successful. So here most ventures stop because ideas, and then little bit struggle, and then you reach your threshold. This is the level of tolerance I have for failure. Then you wind up and then go back, do something else, do the cheaper alternative, or I will not call it as cheaper, or easier alternative, okay, just let me get into job. But some entrepreneurs, what they do is first they fail and then go re-equip themselves and then go work for some time and then come back, and there are various types. But the biggest misconception most founders have is that it's easy to build a company in a single pass. It is not always. Most of the time you have to go through multiple iterations, or there will be inherent, what I would call as a drag, you'll try to do lots of things which may not be possible as easily as you thought. But eventually, you will get to know, I think if you persist, you can do. So the level of persistence is something that, you have to develop early on. A little bit of doggedness, okay, I'm not going to give up on this. Now, when you do that, you can get yourself stressed too much. So this is also because some of the entrepreneurs, they want success to happen very rapidly. Very rapidly means you have to put a lot of effort, and then you can make mistakes, and then it will stress you so much that you can get burnt out, exhausted. Some people have tolerance for this kind of exhaustion, burnout. Some people may not. So you have to know your personality. What kind of person, what kind of business I can build, what kind of level of risk and energy I can keep sustaining, and then remodel your business accordingly. There is no perfectly good model. That is why if you see some of these companies, takes a very long time, 5, 6 years, 10 years, suddenly they will go into one exponential growth. And some companies will rapidly grow, suddenly they will also even fail also. So it's up to you to create a model which suits your personality. And generally I would say that two characters are very important. One is being very curious, willing to learn. And willing to learn is admitting that you don't know. One of the problems the entrepreneurs also may have is they think that they know everything. But you should not think like that. You can learn everything. Being open to learning and then having the confidence to learn new things is very important, but don't assume that you know everything, because you tend to make mistake because just assuming that this is what is right is wrong. So you have to see the data and then see the feedback really yourself. So that mindset you have to cultivate. Okay, if you really see, when you build a business, what are you building? Basically you are building a knowledge system, meaning you get to know everything about the business in a given time frame that comes with lots of experience by practicing something. Now this practice can take longer time or shorter time. So the longer time it takes because the problem is complex, or your ability to rapidly learn is less, or it can take shorter time because you are able to rapidly learn. So you can't escape the quantum of learning that is to be done to succeed in the business. So this quantum of learning that everybody has to do, you can supplement some of it. Like for example, if you are 4 people as a partners, so not necessary that one person need to learn all the 4 domains. One of them can learn one, the other can. So how you sync is more important. So therefore that is why having a co-founder means you are able to shorten the cycle. Having one more, and also there is a problem. If you have 5-6 co-founders, the synchronization among co-founder will become an overhead, because you don't know like how you guys can work together. So these are, like essentially certain quantum of learning you have to do. How smart are you in getting to learn this faster and implementing it? Because that's a knowledge creation. At the end of the day, a business has a knowledge inherent to the business, which as a starter, you don't know anything, so you have to learn all that. You have to learn about the finance, you know about the technology, you know about the market, you know about the human resource, how do you manage. So be open to the idea of learning and be curious. Don't ever undermine that you can't learn anything. So one of the other problems that most of the founders think is, no, I'm not going to learn finance, but I still want to be a great entrepreneur. No, you don't have to become the CA level finance or a financial analyst level finance, but you still have to learn, what is, cost, what is gross margin, gross profit, or, net profit, and what is overhead, where I can cut down cost. Or you should have, for example, be able to recruit people to meet the requirements you have. The other talent, most great entrepreneurs have is, they have a unique knack of finding the right people, even if they are not able to do the task. Because I told you the knowledge creation is a process. They have a unique knack of finding talent and then put them in the right slot so that they don't have to really work hard. Now, when I mean that, you have to hire a person, you may have to pay him. So this is again, if you're a visionary, you are able to convince people. So there is some leadership comes into play. Like, I have seen time and again, some of the entrepreneurs keep coming and telling me, sir, I'm not able to build any team. People are not coming and joining me in my team. But some entrepreneurs, even though they are just students, they are able to assemble a team. I don't know what magic they have. So these are, even for grown-up people, I tell you, they can't, assemble a team for whatever reason. So these are the traits, makes, it's not just being kind or intelligent alone, but some magic. So you can cultivate that. So you have to, you have to reflect on what you are doing, how you are impacting people, what makes them tick with us. So this is a personal process. Most entrepreneurs' journey is a very personal process. You have to be ready to transform yourself first to become what you want to become. Now, therefore, you have to tame your own ego. So everything you have to do, which is not as easy. But can you do it? Definitely, if you are willing. It depends on how badly you want to succeed. Now, you have to make lots of these sacrifices, convince everybody, and it's not a lonely journey. So therefore, how do you create a big pie so that everybody is, willing to contribute so that they also get rewarded. So, but at the same time, must be able to push people, get things done. It's not always easy, if you want to do something, it's easy because things are in your control. If I want you to get something done from you, it's not easy unless you are, willing to do it. So I should possess that character of somehow, making you work for the, result that I'm trying to, achieve here. these are, like some unique characters, like you have to develop.
Yes, sir. Talking about networking, sir, how vital you think it is for the early stage founders?
So, networking is useful provided you network with the right resource. See, sometimes you go to some meetings and then connect with lots of people. The good network is one thing. What I have realized is like where there are more givers in the network, which means you must be also be able to give something back to the network. So only when lots of givers are in this network, so you also are a contributor, because most givers are there, so you can also get back something. So that's one thing that you have to ensure about a good network. So I have seen in some networks everybody wants to be a taker, everybody wants to get something out of the network, so it doesn't work. So network is useful, but also before you build a network, don't expect now today I'm going to build a network, therefore I'm going to get some result back. Now you build a network over a period by doing few things. Number one, being visible. Okay, people must know that you are existing. Okay. Second thing, you must voluntarily start giving something to them. Help them first, because you don't know when you are going to seek help from them. So that is why the community events, voluntary events, and all are very important, because you have a chance to work with rest of the people. So they observe. Most people tacitly or seriously observe us, what kind of person we are, how good we are in doing things, whether we take responsibility and then deliver, how we give commitment and honor. So these are going to make some kind of image about yourself, so that the network becomes really useful. Because first of all, for someone to help us, they must have a good opinion about ourselves. So instant networking may not work, but don't spend too much time in networking also. Sometimes, like I have some 9,000 followers in LinkedIn. Is all of them are useful? I don't think so. But networking, the best way to network is giving back to the community, and then in the community where you are, and you will find that even if they don't give you, because in the community when they see you as a responsible person, a very good person, you are most likely to get help from the weaker links. Like what, so if I know you, we are in the first circle of network, and I don't know somebody who in the other link, I mean the second ring, and that person that knows somebody else. In majority of the cases, we don't benefit because we know each other. We may get benefited, but because all that people that I also know. So where it gets interesting is the secondary, tertiary networks. But for it to happen, you will have to go and tell your friend, hey, look, this person is a very good person, you should help him. Can you please tell him can you please tell your friend to help him? So that weak links are really the strong links. So the weaker links are very powerful. So that is the importance of building this network. And there is always, if you have done some help to someone, people are going to come back and help you back, because there is something called a theory of reciprocity. If I become obligated to you, I mean, you do some help to me without expecting anything, then next time when you come and ask for a help, so I'm not going to say easily no. Now, the first time when you have to do this help, you can't plan whether you are going to get this help back from me. But be generous, be kind, be giving. Now you will find eventually lots of people are going to help you back. I mean, this has happened to me a lot of times, and therefore I become a serious person. Whoever comes and asks me for help, if it is possible, definitely I will do it. I mean, I will not say like no and all that. That helps me, like not definitely from that person, but somewhere he goes and tells, or somebody sees, and there's a good news spreading about, okay, this is some trustworthy person. I mean, we can work with them. So that's more important.
So coming on to the final question, sir, because being an entrepreneur is mentally and physically, it's very challenging. What one of the focus mantra that you can tell to the founders for not giving up or being mentally strong when they're passing through their hard times?
I think See, the mindfulness is what everybody is saying. So most important character for being resilient entrepreneur is you should not become anxious about future. I mean, lots of things. If you generally, like most people have this problem of imagined failures. Sometimes, when we work, when things start going wrong, you tend to imagine that everything is going to collapse. I've seen that, there is something like you become so anxious and you stop doing what can be done. I mean, there are times in which there are pressures also. Like, I will not say that it's so easy, but if you step back and then continue to do what you have to do, even if it collapses at that time, and eventually you will realize that it's not as bad as what you thought, because there are goals and achievements which works on like football. Like football game is played for 1 hour 40 minutes or 1 hour 30 minutes or whatever. You have a half time, so you have to score goal before the end of the match, or you some couple of extensions. So life is not like that. You can fail today, you can succeed tomorrow, again you can fail. So you should actually don't get very excited because you are succeeding. Don't get upset too much about also you are failing. So this shall also pass. Because I think if you really ask me, in the first few failures, I got so upset. I became like depressed, I should say that, like, suicidal. You don't want to talk to anyone because I think I'm failed, like, therefore I'm useless kind of thing. But looking back, I think none of these setbacks were as big as what I imagined it to be. Today, if things go wrong, I immediately like look at whether I can manage to recoup things or I have to start over and again. That's the way I look at life. It takes long time to reach this stage. I mean, because I'm now, in my 60s, so therefore it's easy for me to give this gyan. But I think as early as in my 40s, I start realizing that I don't think you need to really feel bad if things go wrong, because things will inevitably so it's a law of nature. I think things will go right and wrong simultaneously, and most of the time when things go wrong, very seriously analyze whether things went wrong because of things which you could not control or things which you could have controlled. There are many situations in which when things go wrong, in situations which you could not control the inevitable happening of what is going wrong. Like, for example, COVID, you don't really worry about it. It can impact you, it can affect you. For example, you would make a loss and all that, but don't paint yourself as a failure. So, and also the biggest failures happen because you already are seeing some signals of things going wrong. You are not attending to it. That's when you get into deeper crisis. Like, for example, if you're borrowing as a person who is running a company, there is a limit to which you can borrow. Okay, if you keep on borrowing and then borrowing again, borrowing and borrowing, and someday you must say that I'm going to stop it. I think I'm going to cut the losses here. Maybe you should not assume that you can never borrow also, but you must know a sense of where I can stop this, because that's in your control. Don't blame tomorrow by heavily borrowing, losing all the money and then going to street. So your ego can damage this. Like, fundamentally, we become arrogant sometimes. We don't admit that I think we are making mistakes. So you don't have to feel that when you make mistakes. Look at what can I correct now because I made mistake. First of all, admit. Second thing is, don't paint a very wrong picture about yourself because I'm making. So because many of us do not want to venture because we will fail, and if we fail, we feel that we are incompetent. I mean, especially one thing I have noticed is people who have done very exceptionally in academic field, they would not have seen failure. For example, many of us, go to very good schools. I've never failed in my entire career. Not even one paper I've failed. I've always, succeeded. When you come into business, one day you fail. It looks like, I failed in this exam. And that is why sometimes, I feel that early failure is very, very important for you to get a sense of, I think you can still manage failures. So you must have sufficient number of failures in your life to get this wisdom of, okay, even if I fail, I can manage, don't worry. But you can't create failures by not attending to things which you have to attend. That's not like, you being reckless and do wrong things and then, get into the trap of failing very often. So that's the idea. Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir. This was a very wonderful journey through your experience. I think this will be a very great insights for all the early stage founders who are listening. So as always, stay curious, stay focused, and keep evolving. Until next time, this is Aditi Shri signing off.
Thank you. Thank you.